stand up real quick, everybody up. Do one of these. I'm not going to talk about a CI/CD pipeline. I'm not going to talk about technology. I am going to talk about making people do stuff they don't want to do. Look what I just did. That was weird. All right, you let me know when I'm on. Can you guys hear me okay? Am I on? All right. I'll even get on stage. I might fall off because I like to walk around. All right, let me see. All right, cool. Okay, so this is one of my favorite topics. I love it. I actually didn't know that I would be ending the conference or have a 40-minute slot. So I got like 20, 25 minutes of content. We can get out early or we can get out on the time. But what I'd like to really do is I want to have a conversation, okay? Because this is one of those things where you're only going to get as much out of it as you put into it. And I know we all deal with change. Cool? All right. So just some presentation goals. So first I want to talk about, what does change even mean? And what kind of change we deal with at IT and at Encore. And I'm guaranteeing it's probably really similar to what you guys deal with. I want to talk about some barriers of change and how to identify them and overcome them. And I'll be pinging you guys to kind of understand what kind of barriers you guys are facing as well. I want to review a couple real life situations of what we went through. And, I got a bunch of stuff listed on the deck. I'm going to go really into the background of what the story was, what our struggles were, because it's going to say up here that we found it and we kind of knocked it out and did awesome. But, really, it was a lot more complicated than that. And then, what I want to do is talk to you about how you can use this information to influence your organizations. Because at the end of the day, you could have a kick-ass CI/CD pipeline. You could have all the tools and technology, and you could have an amazing organization. But if you can't influence somebody to actually do something or adopt it, or if you can't take your change and move it through an organization, it's kind of all for naught. Okay? All right, so about me. So I'm a senior manager, IT, global DevOps. Global DevOps at Encore is a couple things. The first thing, we call it AIS, Application Infrastructure Services. So really it's API management, integration, any way to kind of connect stuff together. And it's application lifecycle management. So work management, source management, test management, release management, CI/CD automation, all that super cool stuff. Been at Encore for 23 years. So I started when I was about 6 years old. I've actually worked there longer than I haven't worked there, if you can believe that. I got a background in software engineering, full stack .NET and Java engineer. I'm an author of one of MCM's debt management platforms. So Encore's got multiple subsidiaries in the US. MCM's the largest one, and I helped them write their Java front end with Richard Shaler there on our old iSeries AS400 platform. I also am a current sitting CAB member for CA Technologies API Management Suite. So I get to go up there and talk to really cool companies like yourselves about what we're going to do with their API gateways, API management, and all of those kind of cool, fun tools. So who's Encore? You probably never really heard of us, but we're an international special financial services company. Basically, we're one of the world's largest debt purchasers. We do debt collections. We purchase portfolios of consumer receivables from large banks, some of them who are here, Capital One folks, they know us pretty well. 1 in 5 U.S. citizens, U.S. Americans have an account with us. And so that's a lot. And, we take that pretty seriously. We have operations in 15 countries. One of the things that we're really proud of is we have the industry's first and only consumer bill of rights. What we realize and what we know is everybody's normal. Everybody has debt. Everybody comes into situations. And we approach this with empathy and with grace. And we want to help everybody out at the end of the day. And we do take that very seriously. And we're headquartered in San Diego, and we're publicly traded. So just to kind of give you guys a breadth of scope of kind of my team, and I thought I'd put this up here because it'll help with understanding change. It's hard enough to deal with change when you're sitting next to folks, but it's even harder to deal with change when you're managing through multiple time zones, multiple locations. You're working when I'm not, I'm working where you are. So, really, my team spans out East and West Coast, Costa Rica, it's just horrible going to Costa Rica, by the way, and then in India, okay? And then, like you saw on the site, we have operations everywhere else, but basically this represents the U.S. domestic operations. That's who we really service. Okay. So managing change, so we're talking about how DevOps helps manage it. And usually when people talk about DevOps, it's all about the tools and the pipeline and things like that. But the other part of DevOps is really about culture and getting people to shift and getting people to be able to kind of work more agile and accept these changes. All right, so I told you I was going to pick on you guys. I saw that. Who's gone through some major changes in their organization last year? Okay, so who are you? Who do you work for? And what was the change?
So I'm Ashley Carpenter. I work for Vanguard. So one of our major changes is my group went from building out software for a specific business line, Vanguard's personal advisor services offer. And we have completely changed the strategy around that. So we instead want to create a platform that all of our business lines can leverage.
Wow.
So we've gone from to being like a shared services organization in a sense. And along with that, we're also embracing all of the new technology stack the newest technology stack we have at Vanguard, which is really our cloud and API gateway and API architecture.
That's a twofer. You went twofer
so there's
on that one.
Pretty much everything entirely different.
How'd that kind of work out for you? Did you go through some of the normal pitfalls and challenges? Was it kind of smooth?
So it's actually been, we did a lot of like priming the team to just, hey, everything's going to be radically different. We adopted the tagline of, if it doesn't feel different, it's not different enough.
That's right.
And actually that has gone pretty well because I think they've just know that things are going to be different. They know they're going to stumble. They know they're going to like feel their way through things. So, I mean, we're definitely learning a lot, but we're encouraging the learning. So,
Great.
So it's definitely, it's hard to bring predictability into our work right now. But I would say that's gone as expected.
So you're going to definitely jibe with some of the stuff I'm going to talk about. Who else? Who's gone through any kind of big major changes? Anybody? I know there's more than one. USAA? I met with you at the APEM group. I know you guys are going through change. All right. Name, company, change.
I'm Kane, Capital One, and so in the Chicago area this year, we've gone through some pretty significant kind of shifts in where our systems reside and changes in work, going from work ownership to more of a matrix and more of a hired gun type of team structure, and I don't know, we're still shifting in that space and maybe shifting back even some. So, but it's been interesting culturally to look at how that's impacted people and how they look at things when they're working on something that maybe somebody else is going to be working on 6 months down the road.
Right. And it's tough to give stuff up, and it's tough to be able to shift like that.
Right.
Yeah, because you have this innate sense of ownership. And as a software engineer, man, I made something. That's my baby. Don't touch it. Step back. Who's gone to cloud this year? Anyone cloud? Or anybody do different dev tools, work tools? All right. I know you're out there. But anyway, so a lot of people have gone through this change. This isn't abnormal in any group. And so what do you classify as change? It could really be anything, but some of the stuff that we've gone through, over the last 3 or 4 years at Encore, we went from waterfall to agile. That's awesome. I've been through that like 5 or 6 times and failed a bunch. Introduction of new technology paradigms. So automation or just making stuff go faster, Introduction of new tool set. API management. When I started, I still have column-based RPG in production, RPG4. So going from, RPG4, to struts, I used to be an ASP3 programmer, right? And now we're doing stuff like API management, disparate services, endpoint protection, all this stuff. It's different. Even just going from SOAP to REST is a big deal, right? Introduction to new policy procedures, formal release management. I can remember times when we wanted to release, I sent an email to the group and said, I'm going to release. And now you need CAB approval. Now you need to go through tools. Now you need to go through workflow. Even if you got a pipeline, it's still a big change. And it's tough to get people on the road, okay? So let's talk about barriers of change, because this is usually what kind of prohibits us from really moving forward. And I put some ideas down, but I'd love for you guys to give me some of your thoughts on what your barriers of change would be, because these are the things that you really need to figure out. You need to figure out when you come up with this, when you run into this, how to handle it in the right situation so it doesn't need to be a barrier, so you can embrace it and turn it into a positive thing. So one of them I call the nonconformer. I've been a nonconformer, okay? So a lot of times the way I identify this is, they have a hard time seeing the big picture or a different picture, right? Maybe it's someone that's done their job for a long time. Maybe it's someone that's trying to go from a legacy technology to a new technology. They're just having a problem biting in and really figuring it out. Someone along that line say, well, I'm happy with what it is. I got the status quo. Why would I need to change, right? This is if you've ever read the book, Who Moved My Cheese, this is kind of one of those things where it's like, well, I'm comfortable and I don't really want to move. Maybe because you're not making them comfortable, okay? Doesn't deal with change well. Again, this is someone that maybe just doesn't understand well enough. Maybe it's someone that you haven't brought in well enough. Will commonly discredit the change. And so this is one of the biggest problems that I've felt with the nonconformer. And let me tell you, the nonconformer is just someone that's ready to change that hasn't gotten the buy-in yet. You need to address this situation in a positive way. Because if you deal with this nonconformer and say, okay, well, this guy's, he's just blocking me, so I'm going to sideline him. Or I'm going to discredit him. Well, guess what? That's not going to work out, because what you don't know is he could go and discredit your change, and what is really happening is he's not wrecking it for you, he's wrecking it for all the people that would benefit by actually having whatever change that you believe in be accomplished. And so it's important not to get mad at this person, which I used to all the time, and it's very, very easy to blame this person. You need to embrace them, you need to make them feel comfortable, and you need to bring them along, because they will subvert it, and it's not about you, it's about their wrecking it for everybody else that's going to benefit. Okay? Who's dealt with a nonconformer? There you go. Okay. Were you mad at him at first? You're spiteful. You're like, why are you sabotaging this for me? What are you doing to me? As soon as you take it beyond yourself and say, okay, if they just understood that they're really kind of not helping the team out, help come at a different angle. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but just still trying to go with the right mindset. Executive buy-in. When I first wrote this, my line was, doesn't connect with my vision. Okay, so that was wrong. Because again, it's not about me. If they don't connect with the vision, maybe you haven't done enough to help them to connect with the vision. If you cannot help them to connect with the vision, maybe you haven't thought it out enough to be able to present that change, right? Most of the time, executives are not going to be combative unless they have an agenda. But you need to be, when you have these changes happen, you need to be able to communicate it well. You need to be able to connect these folks. They'll also say, doesn't fit in with my current roadmap, doesn't fit in with my budget. Well, then I'd say, start sooner. Start campaigning, And, usually when I want to do a big change, and I got two of my people on my team right here right now, so you'll see it. I start about 6 to 12 months in advance. And I start talking to them. Psst, psst, psst. We should do this. Oh, I was at a conference. I saw this. Man, this was cool. And then you want to know what I really do? I actually go tell someone, hey, man, you should try this. And I make it other people's ideas, because it shouldn't come from me. Why should it from me? I want it to come from a bunch of people, because what executives want to see is they want to see buy-in on a large scale. They want to see more people want it besides the person that's already bought in. So I've gotten this feedback so much. Oh, Eric, you're already bought in. You're already sold. Well, but what about all these people? You control your destiny. You can help those people get bought in, so it's not just you, so it comes as a team. So one of the other big barriers of change is priorities. And we all know this. We want to do something, priorities change. The biggest thing I could say about that is plan ahead, get in with the priorities, and if the priorities change, don't let it die. Have a backup plan. Have a plan to say, okay, if I'm halfway through this and my priorities change, just put it on a burner, slow cook it, but be able to bring it back up. If it's really that important to you, be able to bring it back alive and rehydrate it. Another big one that I've definitely dealt with, I have a lot of experience, 23 years. That, you know what that means? I've screwed up a ton, okay? Historical implementation. People remember when you screw up, and they will use it to say, I don't buy into this change. What can the historical issues be? Forcing a change down someone's throat, not being ready with all the details, not rolling it out correctly, or putting in a change, implementing it, and then not following up and letting it die. And so, the thing that I would say about this is, if you're going to be a change agent and you believe in the change, you need to stick with it, and you need to make sure that you do all the proper homework in order to get it going. And kind of this leads into the next point. So this has my seal of approval. Come on, it's funny. All right, geez. Come on. Okay, so I'm not saying this is going to work for everybody. This is what I have found that worked for me for a couple changes that I think have gone pretty well. A lot of what it has to do is planning ahead. It's kind of weird. If you plan ahead, it kind of works out sometimes, okay? And so we'll go through it real quick, but this is what's worked for me. First, understand what you're trying to do. Don't just get super excited about something and say, oh, okay, we're going to put it in. Really understand it, really grasp it, because you're going to have to be the one to explain it, and you're going to have to be the one that makes it work. Once you understand it, gain strong executive buy-in. If you do not have executive buy-in, I'm sorry to say, it's just not going to work. Somebody higher up has to care about it. They have to sponsor you because, all that's going to happen. That's a promise, okay? But if you have executive buy-in, you can at least get to the next step, which is document your standards of what you're trying to do. Write it down. What are you going to try and do? What are you going to try and make effective? Once you document down what you want to do it. You want to implement CI/CD? Get a team together, document how you're going to do it, and then do it. You want to implement a tool? Implement the tool. Show that you can do it. Show that you can be effective. Once you've done that, so like let's say that I want to implement like a new API gateway, or I want to implement some new technology. How the heck are you going to support it? 9 times out of 10, your change is going to fail if you implement it and then you don't know how to support it, and then you leave a whole bunch of people to the wind. Like we implemented a whole bunch of new CA API gateways this year, and we needed them to develop on it. And so I said, okay, well, we're going to create a developer community. We're going to give you all these gateways. Well, we have to support it when we bring it up, because if I give someone a gateway and I teach them how to do it and then I say, oh, well, that's for you, they're going to drop it, and then they're not going to do the next time you want to make a change, okay? Create runbooks. Again, make it work, document your supporting model. Now show the people that have to support it how they're supposed to do it. Again, you're building this integrity. You're creating this snowball that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Plan your rollout. Plan your rollout effectively. It goes back to people are going to remember what you do. And when you're planning your rollout, now you're including people. You're saying, okay, look, I got my buy-in, and I got all this documentation. I got my run books. I figured out how to do it. This is how I want to do it. Now you start including your teams. Now it becomes a ton of other people's idea that you want to do this. People start getting excitement, like the momentum's building. Like, I get this change, okay? Then you identify your champions. By the time you're at this place, somebody, try and find somebody that's going to be like, yeah, I want to do it. I want to do it. I want to do it. That's going to be your change agent. That's going to be your champion. This is before you do anything. This is before you even start rolling it out. Again, you're taking care of your impediments. You're creating your integrity to be able to do something, and now you're finally ready to go. This is hard. Most people don't do this because it's a ton of work, and you're by this time, if it's not an effective change, maybe you're not excited anymore about it. But this is really what it takes to make a long-lasting change, at least from my experience. Over the last 2 years, we've implemented all this technology. I've done most of it in an effective way, some of it not. But we have implemented a ton of change at Encore Capital. Part of it is because we have a culture that's just ready to change. They think on their feet. They're very agile. I mean, it's shocking how much change these people can absorb. But this has worked more than one time. And so I'm going to go through a couple use cases where we actually did this. Okay. So the first change was implementing CI/CD. Told you I'm not going to talk about technology. I won't talk about the pipeline, but we implemented CI/CD. It took about 18 months. I think we're finishing up the last team right now. In the beginning, nobody really was totally bought in on it. We had a couple Jenkins servers. People knew automation was kind of cool, but we were going to go to this new tool. We were going to go to a new pipeline. We were going to go to VSTS and do all this really cool stuff. But we had to, implement a new branching and merging strategy, or you can't do CI/CD. We had to get people off their Jenkins servers, which they weren't comfortable with. We had to get them in a release strategy. We had to get them in sprints. It's all of this stuff that people are uncomfortable with. And, by the way, I'm busy. I can't do it. I don't have time to implement this new stuff. Yeah, I get it. Okay. So first what we did, we implemented those 8 steps, or did as good as we can. Like I said, we did it as good as we could. I get it. It's not going to be perfect. But we did those 8 steps. We identified a champion team. There was one team that said, man, I'm ready. I love it. I'm ready for change. I said, perfect. You're going to be my champion. We went in, and then we assigned a project manager, and we figured out what the rollout strategy was. One of your most important things when you implement a change, assign a project manager. This is not a negotiable thing. Get a good project manager. Get someone that's going to set up meetings and create milestones and a project plan. Do not make this a side desk activity. Changes do not work if it's a side desk activity. That's where changes go to die. Report out on it every week to executives. You need to have the oversight. It needs to be real, okay? Articulate roles and responsibilities. I like RACIs. You know, a good project manager will demand a RACI. But people need to know what they're accountable for. People need to know that they're going to go to meetings. Once a week on Tuesday, we have a enterprise level project review meeting. We will review every single project that's happening in the organization. Project manager needs to sit up and say, this is what's going on. This is what color it is. This is what my risks and issues are. And it's in front of about 30 people. That makes it real. If you're going to make a change, make it real. Okay? Identify clear milestones and clear deliverables. Show people what success looks like. Don't have people push towards this nebulous thing that they think is the end because they'll never actually go to the end. They need to understand what success looks like. This is why you get a pilot team. Because the pilot team is going to work with you. They're going to absorb the failures that you have on this first rollout. And they're going to be kind about it. And they're going to say, they're not going to talk about the failures. They're going to talk about the success, and they're going to be proud of it, right? And then once we succeeded with this first team change, we went and showed off. We went to all the teams, we scheduled a big meeting, said, look what we did. Look at this CI/CD. It's amazing. This first project team that we went with, they used to do 12-hour deployments. They can do it in about 6 minutes now. It's pretty awesome. It didn't start with 6 minutes. It went down to 12 hours to a couple hours, but it's still an amazing success, right? You need to be able to show people that what you're trying to change is actually going to add value. Hey, and guess what? With this champion team, if it actually didn't add value, at least we know without changing everybody's lives. And you can pivot. So, sometimes your change isn't going to work. That's the other thing that I didn't write down. Sometimes it's not going to work, and that's okay. Do it in a minimal scope. Still do your documentation, do your homework, but sometimes it's just not going to happen, and that's okay. Okay. The second one, this was fun. So first I had to swap out my whole API management suite. We're not going to talk about it, but basically I brought in CA, and I got all their tools and stuff. And I got this one tool. It was pretty sweet. It allowed us to create APIs rapidly. What it really did was it took my senior Java developer and made him, no, it took my junior Java developer and made him just as good as my senior Java developer. You can imagine how that went over in a distributed environment. I equalized everybody. But what also happened is this year we're implementing a new call center servicing platform. We're taking 3 of our platforms and merging it into one. And guess what? This never happens to anybody else, but they gave me the date before we had a project plan. Does that ever happen to anybody? Someone gave you a date and said, do it? Okay. They also said, we're not going to hire any more people. And they said, do the work that you need 3 times as many people in the same amount of time. And so I was like, all right, well, we have this tool, and I think it can speed it up. Okay? So the first approach was saying, I'm going to have a champion team, and then I'm going to roll out to all these teams, and it was kind of like a delayed response. This next one was, I'm going to take all the developers at once, and I'm going to put on this workshop. So this change is kind of an all at once. It's still the same kind of concept, but it's figuring out, okay, who's going to be my change blockers? That's what I identified. And it was that first column. It was like the naysayers. So I knew that my senior engineers at certain sites were not going to be happy that this junior engineers could do it just as well as them. So, I took them and said, okay, you guys are my team captains. And here's what we're going to do. I need you to grab teams, and we're going to go through this workshop. I'm going to train you for a day, and then we're going to have 2 days of development. And I got the CIO coming on Friday, and you're going to show off, and whoever wins gets a prize. And I want you to kick butt as much as you can with your teams, and I want you to show me what you can do. You know what happened? They immediately embraced it because you gave them the thing that they thought that they were losing importance. What you also did was you made it so that the junior folks could come in and they could accept the change. And you gave them a purpose of why to do it. This is one of those, I don't know if it's like mental ninja move or whatever, but It's understanding your situation, it's understanding your audience, and it's looking towards the greater good, right? It's not about how awesome I am because I implemented a tool. It's I just relieve them of so much stress because they could not accomplish this without it. And, I help them embrace the change in a way that they didn't understand. They didn't even know what happened. They're just so happy. And it turned out great, right? And so it's still the same kind of recipe. You still did the first 8 steps, identified some champion engineers, right? One of the big deals was I told the vendor, I said, hey, guess what? I just got your tool. You want me to buy more? Put on a free workshop. Vendors will give you free stuff. Leverage your vendors. If you go and tell them you want a workshop, they will pay for a workshop. I promise you. They love to do it. They love to promote their tools. Use your resources, right? Part of that was the fun thing. CA Technologies is coming in and they're sponsoring it and they're buying lunch. They'll do it. You have to ask. In a workshop like this, 3 to 5 day agenda. Have it support a hackathon, do classroom learning. Most of the people in all of our surveys says they want to grow, engineers want to learn. Everybody wants to learn and everyone wants to be better. Make it like a classroom thing. Say like, look, dude, your resume is going to be hot after this. I don't want you to go, but I'm teaching you a skill. They will embrace that. And then, creating that report out session. Make it a big deal that they did a good job. Invite your senior execs. Again, you get executive buy-in for it, they're going to love to show up. And executives want to see people succeed and give them an opportunity to do that. What you can't do, what most people do after this, though, is let it go. You have to still check in. You have to be able to say, okay, look, I know you adopted it, but a month later, are they still doing it? Do they need support? You can't just let them go. It's like, I got 2 kids. It's like, my youngest, when he was young, he just learned to walk. Okay, cool, you can walk. I'm going to go make a sandwich. Like, you can't do that. You have to make sure they're supported, right? Because they will drop it. I promise you, they'll drop it. Some of that stuff makes sense? Resonating a little bit? Good. All right, so, things don't always go right. So hindsight, what could I have done better? Or what, some strategies. Corporate priority shift, we talked about this. Have a strategy to stop and start. That's going to happen, especially in the rapid work that we do, okay? Teams who are not bought in can and will block the rollout. Have a plan ready to deal with the situation. Do not go in thinking it's just going to work. Do not think that it's just going to be rose petals and rainbows. Understand it, plan for it, be prepared. Like I said, be prepared to follow up with your teams. They will slip if you don't. And still have these games. You can still follow up and have fun. Okay. Make sure you work with vendors who are committed to making you a success. When I buy software, I tell them. I say, look, I want to bake it in the deal. You're going to do training. You're going to do workshops. If I'm going to buy this product, I'm investing in you. You invest in me. You can say, in a very nice way, you can do whatever you want. Make the deal, make it beneficial. Okay? All right? And if it's open source, be prepared to be the expert. Lots of great open source companies are out there. You may not get the vendor support from them, so you need to be the expert. If you're going to use open source, be able to answer the next level questions. You need to be an expert in this stuff because if I'm trying to implement a change and you can't believe that I know what I'm doing, why would you do it? Right? And make sure, again, so this goes with it, make sure you're comfortable with the new systems. Make sure you know what to do. Okay? So that's pretty much it. Cool? Any questions?